So let's put some more devices in our home hub. Okay, we're going to initially create a new class for each device. Okay, so every device, heating, music player, is going to have its own file which defines what it does. So in this week's lecture, each class will only define one object, and sometimes you call this a singleton class when you have a class that only contains one object. So you might notice as we do this, there's a lot of duplicate code, and we're going to deal with that later by using other object-oriented design ideas such as objects and inheritance and abstraction and polymorphism. That's much later in the course. So for the moment, we'll duplicate the code, but we don't think that's the best way of doing it. The best way is to start to use these other design ideas. So let's have some more lights. Okay, so ceiling light, floor lamp, table lamp, spotlight. We're going to put all of those in our hub 03. The first three are essentially the same, so they're just the name changes. So the code for each of those three is exactly the same. The fourth one is dimmable, so it's got a brightness setting too. Okay, so there's well, I'm not going to show you the floor lamp and the table lamp because they are pretty much the same as the ceiling lamp. Actually, why don't I show you the code? Here's Home Hub 03. There's our ceiling light code. There's the floor lamp, and what was the other one? Table lamp. There's the table lamp. I don't know if you saw, as I was opening those up, the only thing that's changing is this name. So, and then the name of the class at the top here. So the rest of the code is exactly the same. The spotlight is slightly different. The spotlight has more data and has more methods. So the init method contains a lot more data because it's got more functionality. This class, so it's dimmable. You can see that we've got an initial setting, which is the brightness. So the class knows what kind of thing it's changing. So the brightness here, the type, and the setting initially is 350, which is often measured in lumens. And then it's got some maximum and minimum. So you can dim it up to undim it up to 500 or dim it down to 10. So those are going to dim it down to 0, but you do it in increments of 10. So every time you change the brightness, it goes up by 10 or down by 10. Okay, the switch on and switch on off methods are exactly the same as the other lights. So we've got some duplication there. The status method is virtually the same, except that it now also calls print setting. So it's going to, as well as confirming whether the object is on or off, it'll say what the brightness is set to. And these are the new methods that we've got. So we've got a method called up, a method called down. Obviously, they just change the setting by this increment. So self.change setting by the increment. That increases the brightness by 10 lumens or decreases the brightness by 10 lumens. So it's this, whatever this self.increment is set to, it will increase it by that much. And then change setting, this is the method that's called when something's changed. This is called by the up and down methods, and they just call it with a plus or minus 10. And change setting then changes the setting and also checks whether it's reached the maximum or the minimum, and then prints out the setting. Okay, so print setting finally just prints out the name of the device, what type of thing is being changed, so the brightness in this case is set to, and then whatever it's set to. Okay, heating class is going to be almost exactly the same as the spotlight. It's just the data that changes. So heating has got the same set of methods. So the on-off, switch on, switch off, up and down, print setting, change setting, all of those things are the same. The only thing that changes is the data in this case. So we've got the name is the heating, type of thing that we're changing is the temperature. So change the temperature, and then the setting is initially set to 18, the temperature is set to 18, and the maximum, this this device will allow us to go to is 30, and the minimum is 1. Sorry, the minimum is 0. The increment is 1. I keep misreading that. Increment is 1, so every time you change it, if you're up or down, it changes by 1, unlike the spotlight. Okay, so that's temperature in degrees C. Everything else in the heating class is exactly the same as the spotlight class, and we'll use that later on, I think next week in fact, to save ourselves some time and some code. Then there's one other class, the music player. So this is even more involved, because a music player, as well as being on and off, and as well as having a volume, it's got other things it can do, and in this case it could be playing or not playing. So initially self.playing is false. If we switch it off, then if it's playing, it's paused, so it's never actually, so the device is switched off, but the playing is paused. And when it's on, it'll tell us whether or not, so these lines in yellow here, it'll tell us whether or not it's playing or not. So if we print the status, if it's on, it'll tell us whether it's playing or not. And then there's two methods to make it play and to make it pause. Okay, so these two methods at the bottom here make it play and pause. And so play, if it's not on, we have to switch it on, and then we set playing to true and we print the status. And pause, if it's playing, we set that to false and we print the status. So every time you do something, the status gets printed out, and that will tell you whether it's playing and whether it's on or off. The main changes to the controller are just actually in the initialization. Almost everything else is unchanged, except there's a little bit more we need to do inside the main loop. So we need to import all those new classes. We need to create new objects, and then we need a set of devices in our list of devices. Okay, and that then gives us a system which has all these devices attached to it. Each one has its own class, but there's a lot of duplication. Let me just run that example and show you. So here's the controller. If I run that, I won't explain the main loop just yet, because that's in the next video. So I'll run that, Control Shift F10. This is kind of similar to some of the examples we saw previously, or the example we saw previously, which used lists rather. But you can see now, each time it creates a device, that device confirms that it's been initialized. That's done in the init method. So we can see that they've all been initialized. We can type in our name, and we can say, let's have spotlight on. Okay, and it tells us what it tells us it's on. It tells us what the brightness is, and then spotlight up, and then it increases the brightness. Okay, so you can see it's doing pretty much what we were able to do before, but now every device is sort of self-contained, because it's got its own data and it's got its own methods. And if I change the floor lamp, I can give it some extra attributes, I can give it some extra methods, and that's independent of all the other things. Okay, I'm going to finish that video here, and then we'll look at the changes in the main loop.